All right, dear friends, how are we all doing? Good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
How are we doing so far since last week?
Excellent.
There we go, there we go. Good spirits. Okay, dear friends, we got a very important class tonight. Healthy at Heart. We'll dedicate tonight's class thank you to the Newmans for sponsoring this course in honor of Nathan's bar mitzvah. I want to show you something very interesting. Look at this over here. I think four weeks into this class. Look at this. This is a very, very candid shot of the Rebbe. Somebody went, this is not recommended, but somebody went with a camera one night to the window outside the Rebbe's office, and he found a little crack in the window shade, and he took a bunch of pictures.
Nice.
And it's unbelievable because it's raw. This Rebbe working by himself in his office, and I just want to show this to you. Just look at this. So this Rebbe, usually the Rebbe never went in public without a hat. See here, you see the Rebbe just with his yarmulke. That's very unique. And the Rebbe's holding a letter that you see. The Rebbe's handling his mail. And look at this. Such an unbelievable picture.
Oh, wow.
So Rebbe's sitting there with a letter, with always a pencil. The Rebbe always held a pencil.
Wow.
And the Rebbe is you see a lot of concentration there. The Rebbe's focusing. The Rebbe's studying a letter. And this is not one letter, So the Rebbe got a lot of mail every single day. So this was something the Rebbe did as a serious investment of his time. It's also interesting. This is not the Rebbe's not sitting by his desk. It's very interesting. The Rebbe's desk is really out of view. This is a chair. Look at this. There's a bunch of books stacked on top of the chair. Right? The Rebbe just has books like at the top of the chair. And this is the armrest. The Rebbe's leaning on the armrest of a chair. The Rebbe's sitting on one chair, and another chair is in front. Very interesting. I don't know why. It's a very interesting configuration over here. But that's the Rebbe reading a letter. And here's another one. This Rebbe's studying. You can see the Rebbe has a few books piled on top of each other. And you got the pencil.
Oh, yeah.
And the Rebbe's studying. So unbelievable pictures of just the Rebbe by himself doing his thing in his office. So I just wanted to share that with you, That when we studied the Rebbe's advice for life to people, this is it in the making. This is the Rebbe in his office, responding to letters and giving people advice. All right, but dear friends, let's get on with the show. Lesson 4, Healthy at Heart. Here's the story. You ready for a story?
Yes.
Two psychologists meet up at a reunion, at their university, at their alma mater, and they both graduated together in the same class, but they didn't see each other in 20 years. Wow, how's it been? How's life been doing? One guy just can't help it, but he realizes that the other psychologist just looks so fresh. Looks like he left college yesterday. Didn't age at all. Meanwhile, 20 years later, he's been, he looks battered and beaten and weathered. Time took its toll, and he says, excuse me for asking you, but, how do you look so good? Every single day I go to work, I have to have people laying on my couch. I have to listen to all their sorrows, all their problems. They pour out their hearts to me. It takes its toll on me. And you're looking so good. So the other guy says, "You telling me you actually listen?" No offense. No offense to our in-house mental health professionals. You ready for another one?
Oh, yeah.
I said, once we're going dark, we're going to go a little bit darker, all right? 3 psychologists meet up at a bar. And they're drinking, they're talking, and one of them said, we're busy hearing out everybody else's problems, everybody else's deepest, darkest secrets. But we never have a chance to do it, so maybe just between the 3 of us, we could all get something off our chest. And they all say, no, yeah, that's a great idea. So they offer drinks again, another round of drinks for all of them. They take their shots, and the first one says, okay, I'll go. I got to get this off my chest. I never told this to anybody. But I secretly steal from every single one of my clients. Ooh, that's bad. Second one says, you know what? If you're going to be that honest, I'll share with you. I secretly fantasize about killing my patients. This is dark. The third one says, you know what? I've got a problem. I don't know how to keep a secret. Okay, so dear friends, we'll stop there. We could go darker, but we'll stop there. It's good to laugh. We have a very serious topic today. All right, we have an important topic today. Mental health, anxiety. Last week we spoke about health, the physical side of health. And today we're going to go a little bit deeper into internal health, in our heart, in our minds, how we're doing on the inside. Emotional health and well-being. And before we jump in, I want to tell you a story. There was a rabbi. His name was Alexander Ben Nun, Rabbi Alexander Ben Nun. Ben Nun must have been like a Sephardi origin. And he was a very respected educator and author and thinker in Israel. And he and his wife founded a home for struggling youth, to give them a home, to help build them up. And in 1960, Chabad brought him on to be the educational administrator of the educational institutions of Israel. So all the educational institutions, Chabad educational institutions throughout Israel, is under one organization. It's called the Reshet. And he was in charge of the education. So one time he was in New York and he had a meeting with the Rebbe. And of course the Rebbe would have long discussions about what's happening in the educational system. And he was working on a book. His book was The 10 Principles of Education. So all of his history and work of dealing in education and troubled youth, the 10 Principles of Education. And he presented a draft of his work to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe looks it over and the Rebbe says, but you're forgetting the most important principle. There's an 11th principle here that you're missing. So he says, what am I missing? The Rebbe says, that there are no principles in education. Understand the story? 10 principles, but the most important principle is that there are no principles. Meaning what? Meaning you can't treat education like a system, like a conveyor belt. When you're dealing with children and there's challenges, you have to be very, you can't come with canned responses. You have to be very, every single person is different. Every single situation is different. What's the problem here? What's the character of the individual? What's the psyche? What's the background? You have to be very sensitive that we're looking at people in a very personal way. And I think that's a very important story to set the tone for today's class. And we want to give, what is the Rebbe's advice for mental health, for mental well-being? It's a very difficult question because there's a book published actually. You can buy it online if you Google it. All the Rebbe's letters, not all, but a very beautiful collection of letters of the Rebbe on mental health and mental well-being. And you see there, no letter is identical. And the Rebbe was known for this. He had a very special ability to not respond to questions, but he responded to people. What's the situation? What are the specific, what are the identities of this person? Where do they live even? Everything changes the scenario. In some letters, Rebbe is very soft. Some letters, Rebbe is very gentle to the person. Some letters, Rebbe even is a little bit harsh, gives a kick in the pants, The Rebbe very much knew his clientele. Who is he talking to? And in that way, it makes it very difficult to give, this is the Rebbe's advice on mental health. Mental health is so personal. It's deep within you. It's your own heart and mind. So that's number one. People are different. Also, there's a whole spectrum, so many different kinds of mental health challenges. There's real clinical chronic problems, major depression. There's chemical imbalances, and then there's just regular depression, regular anxiety, the regular ups and downs. That's part of just normal, healthy human living. We all have good days, we all have bad days. We all have the things that get us down. We all have self-doubt. I read this once. Lily, you could let me know. Over 80% of American adults, suffer from self-doubt, debilitating self-doubt. That's a mental health challenge. You're not functioning properly because you're busy. You're always self-doubting yourself. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Am I capable? Am I confident? So there's such a range of emotional disturbances. So we can't say this is Rebbe's authoritative thing. Sometimes if you look at the Rebbe's letters, sometimes the Rebbe sends people to doctors, as we learned last week. We learned the Jewish value of going to a doctor. It's in the Torah that God gave permission to doctors to heal. And the Rebbe was a very big believer in going to doctors, and the Rebbe very often sent people to psychologists, to psychiatrists, to therapy. We'll actually watch a video soon of a very respected therapist in Israel, who the Rebbe recommended a lot of people to go to him specifically, and the Rebbe corresponded with him a lot about different cases. Sometimes the Rebbe said, don't go. Sometimes the Rebbe said, this problem, I think there needs to be medications taken. Sometimes Rebbe encouraged people to speak openly about the problems. Go to therapy, get it off your chest, it's important. There's once I saw somebody who was very disturbed by something. The Rebbe said you have to write a book about your life. Get it off your chest. Write a book, that'll be cathartic for you. So always the advice was very different, very varied. So we can't give a authoritative, this is the package, this is the Rebbe's opinion on it. But at the same time, we're going to do something interesting. If you look at the Rebbe's advice, the Rebbe's responses about mental health questions, there is a certain overarching theme. There's a certain consistent point that the Rebbe goes back to again and again, and it probably is the number one piece of advice that the Rebbe gave when it came to mental health issues. And that's what I want to share with you. Today's class is going to be one simple point, but it's not simple. It's a very, very deep and profound concept, and it's very unique. So that's what we're going to be doing today. One specific approach, which is really at the bedrock of the way the Rebbe approached mental health. Okay. What's the Rebbe's approach? It's going to take us a little while to develop this idea. But let's at least begin on a general level. What's common wisdom today? What happens today if somebody is struggling, going through a mental health, an emotional challenge, anxiety, depression, shame, guilt, something debilitating, something that's what do you do these days? What's
Talk it out.
Talk it out. Talk it out. So let's go to therapy, and let's talk about it, and let's uncover it, right? Talk to me about your trauma. Let's uncover it. Let's get it out. Let's highlight it. Let's put a spotlight on it. And that's common wisdom today. That's a common approach. The common approach today is when there's a problem, focus and shine a spotlight on the issue in order to understand and heal it. That's how it goes. The Rebbe's approach is unique. Not to say that the Rebbe's approach is not this. Sometimes it's what you need to do. The Rebbe did send people to therapy and to psychologists, so I'm not saying that this is not, it's not the Rebbe's approach versus this. But the Rebbe has a certain unique approach, which means even when you're going to see a psychologist, and even when there's an issue, the Rebbe wanted the concept of internal health to be front and center. Meaning like this. Sometimes what happens is you just focus and obsess and fixate on the problem, on the issue, and the issue somewhat starts hijacking the very person. Who are you? You are a person. You are this problem. This problem is all we're going to talk about. You go see your principal, the problem. Your teachers, the problem. Your parents, the problem. Doctor, the problem. There's just so much brooding around the problem that the problem itself becomes front and center. And it starts hurting the person's ability to get into the healthy flow of life. There's such a focus on the problem that they just become disconnected from real healthy functioning living, and the problem itself starts hijacking their life, which means in an effort to fix the problem itself becomes their very identity. And at the beginning, fixating on the problem could offer relief, but then it becomes like a little bit could I say a little bit like an addiction. You keep on going back and back and back and again, and nonstop therapy and again therapy, and it only makes the person even more sicker because you're just talking about this negativity a whole day. The Rebbe wanted there should be a certain space of health as the main focus. And it's going to take us a little bit of time to develop this. Let's develop it. How are we going to develop it? I want to do something very interesting with you. I want to go through 4 case studies with you. Each one is so fascinating. None of them are similar. Each one's a different person, a different situation, a different problem, different circumstances, very different circumstances. And we're going to see a certain overarching theme in each one of these 4 cases. At the end, after we finish all 4 of these, we'll be able to revisit and try to understand what the Rebbe's approach is over here. So, dear friends, let us begin. Case study number 1. You ready? Case study number 1. Our first case study for today. This is a letter that the Rebbe wrote to a young man. And, we don't have the letters that people wrote to the Rebbe. We only have redacted versions of the letters of the Rebbe, which means any tiny bit of information that could tip you off on the identity of the recipient of the letter, was taken out. It was not published. So there's no name, there's no city. Very often the dates were taken out. If it could somehow could give a little hint to who the identity of the recipient is. But when you study the Rebbe's letters, very often you could, it's pretty easy to deduce what the problem here is. This young man writes to the Rebbe that he's plagued by just a lot of troubling thoughts, a lot of inner negativity about himself, and especially he writes to the Rebbe that he's suffering from a lot of painful emotions of guilt and shame over past actions. And we don't know what these actions are. But he did things in the past, this young man, and it's eating him up from the inside. Let us begin. We're gonna learn this letter in parts. All right, we're gonna split this letter into 3 parts. Like that, we could take breaks and properly process it. So let's begin with our first text for today. Stuart, I'll start with you. Page 92 in your books. It's a letter from 1965. Text 1A, page 92.
Dismissing thoughts. With regard to the thought which you expressed in your letter, I believe I have already written to you before that there are many problems and states of mind which are best dealt with by dismissing them from the mind completely, at any rate for a period of time. It is then possible to return to those problems with a fresh mind and in a more objective state, so as to evaluate the problems in their true perspective and reality, and it is then easier to find the proper solution. In the vast majority of such cases, the individual himself can decide how long this period of dismissal from attention should be, judging by the degree of objectivity which he can attain as time goes on.
So the first thing the Rebbe says is, the Rebbe gives him permission, give yourself permission to let go of these troubling thoughts. Let go of them. Don't focus on them, which is a difficult thing to do, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But this is the first thing, which is really a shocker. You know, feelings of guilt maybe are even good feelings, right? Feeling guilty, that's probably a good sign. It means that I have remorse. The Rebbe says, no, it's not healthy. Why? Because it's hijacking your life. What should you do? Don't look at the problem. Don't pet it. Don't even fight it. Simply, mentally walk away from it. Later, you'll be in a healthier place. You're not going to be hijacked by these thoughts. And then, the Rebbe tells him, you could probably be the one to decide when that right time is. You could choose when to go back to those thoughts and look at them from a more healthier, objective place. And then you could decide, how do you want to deal with those thoughts? But right now, move away from them. Okay. And there's a very obvious question here. If something's really bothering you, can you tell somebody, just don't think about it? Does that work? No. Like there's a famous study. Try not thinking about, I don't know, a jumping monkey. There's like a certain thing. For 10 seconds, don't think about the jumping monkey. Will that work? No. What should I do? If you tell me not to think about it, I'll think about it. That doesn't work. So how do you do this thing? How do you do this art of stop thinking about it? So the Rebbe continues. Text 1b, Bonnie. Let's continue the letter. Page 93.
Needless to say also that it is not an easy thing to dismiss a problem from the mind, especially a matter that involves one's own self. This would be almost impossible unless one can engage one's thought and attention in a completely unrelated subject. For man's thinking process is constantly in a state of flux and has a tendency, consciously and subconsciously, to revert to the subject matter which one wishes to dismiss from the mind. Therefore, when resolving to dismiss the matter from one's mind, it is necessary immediately to find some other subject unrelated to the first in which to engage one's attention. Another point, which is also almost universally true, is that it is not easy for the person involved to find the proper subject in which to engage one's mind. But here, it is possible to receive help from friends who would know you and your psychological makeup. Undoubtedly, you have such friends within reach.
So he can't go and start actively shutting off the mind from this topic. That never works. So what do? The Rebbe says, get yourself in a good place where you are very, very consumed, in a good way, with just other things. And be in a good, healthy space. Don't allow yourself to just sit and sink and marinate in your own negative thoughts. Get involved in something. something that could distract you, something that just takes up a lot of your time and energy. And make this tremendous effort. It's a real effort. It's not easy, right? It's not cheap advice. It's hard work to create a healthy environment for your heart and mind. That's step number one. That's step number one. It is not healthy to be in a place where negative thoughts are hijacking you. So what do? Find something positive, something just simply useful, something fulfilling in your life you could engage in, and do that. Okay. So how do you shut off the mind from thinking about this? By actively engaging the mind in something else. Okay. That's step number one. Don't obsess. Don't obsess over the undesirable thoughts and engage the mind somewhere else. Go somewhere else. Okay. Then the letter continues. Once you're in a healthy space, how do you then look back at these negative feelings and guilt and shame and remorse over the past? So Rachel, page 94, text 1C, let's continue the letter. And by the way, this is a letter. Some letters were written in Hebrew, so we're reading them in translation. This letter is in the original English that it was sent in. So this is the original wording of the Rebbe. Okay.
Ending self-recrimination. Generally, there is a teaching of our sages that nothing stands in the way of repentance for the past and commitment for the future. Here, too, the principle enunciated above may be applied, namely, that although it is necessary to end the transgression immediately, whether it is a sin of commission or omission, it is also often necessary to end immediately any self-recrimination or brooding in regard to the sins of the past. One of the obvious reasons for this is that brooding over past failures is bound to be depressing and discouraging and would undermine one's confidence in the future, even one's confidence in the efficacy of teshuva. Therefore, it is advisable to dismiss such thoughts for the time being and leave them for more propitious times. May God grant that you should have good news to report in regard to all the above.
So this is number one. Okay, it's a valid idea. You want to try to correct the past? Very good. And there actually says that's a very good point. That's very important. Judaism believes in second chances. You're not scarred from your past behaviors, from your past choices. It's no problem. There is, but the Rebbe says, but no brooding. As important as it is to do teshuvah and to try to repair what you've done, no brooding over the issue. No self-recrimination. That not. Why? It just creates more negativity in your life. Invest energy in present life. Stop allowing the past to pull you down in the present. Instead, leave the past in the past and live life now. Leave those thoughts for now. Right now, and I love the Rebbe's wording over here, confidence in the future. The problem when you brood over the past is it saps you of all of your good energy for living life in the moment and in the future. Right now, live life in a healthy place. When you're in a place of confidence, you could always look back. You're more objective. You're healthy. It's a beautiful idea. Right now, you have to have confidence in the future. That is where you want to focus on. Don't be consumed by the problem. Don't focus and fix it on the problem. Don't reflect on it. Don't make a whole issue out of it. Don't make this into the whole central issue of your life, right? The central circus of your three-ring circus. Here's my problems. I also eat breakfast. I also have business, but my problems, this is what we do. This is what we spend money on. This is what we talk most times about. No. You got to move on. And this is case study number one. Rebbe's advice to a young man dealing with these very debilitating feelings. This is what the Rebbe tells him to do. That's number one. How are we doing? Let's do case study number two. Case study number two is very different. And just by the way, I just want to mention over here, I don't want you to get the wrong impression that the Rebbe is like telling him to, to be like an ostrich. Shove the problem under the rug. Let's not make an issue out of it. Take your neck and dig it deep into the sand. Problem? What problem? No problems. Nah, no problems in my life. No, that's not what they're saying. They're not saying, just move on from the issue. They was giving him a very proactive and a very active job. Actively change your mental focus to something else. because this is not healthy. This is not proper. It's not legitimate feelings. It's not appropriate feelings. Invest in health, and then you could look back at these issues, again, from a place of objectivity and a place of health. So there's a lot of activeness. There's a lot of life in this piece of advice. Okay, number 2, totally different situation. And this is going to be a video. We're going to watch this by video. A grandson, maybe many of you will recognize him, speaking about his grandmother who suffered from a lot of melancholy. She suffered from a very difficult life, and she just got depressed from it. So here we go.
My grandmother, Taiba Lipsker, was a very, very special and holy woman. Like many of our grandmothers, she did not enjoy a serene and easy, smooth life. Growing up in Bolshevik communist Russia as a Jew was difficult. Raising a family in Georgia during the 1930s under Stalin's tyranny was far from simple. Then came the war. They escaped the former Soviet Union on false papers, came to the displaced persons camps, the DP camps. Again, life was anything but serene, raising a large family, sometimes in one-bedroom flat. My grandparents made it in 1947 to the United States of America. They settled on a farm in New Jersey. That too didn't turn out so successful, and they relocated to Brooklyn, New York. My grandparents raised 9 beautiful, amazing children and a 10th orphan. Making a livelihood proved very complicated, and the upheavals of her life took their toll on her. She suffered from anxiety, from depression, from melancholy. And one day my grandmother consulted the Lubavitcher Rebbe what to do about her internal psychological and emotional state. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave her fascinating advice. He suggested to her that she go to as many Jewish weddings as possible and to dance away at these weddings and inspire other people to dance. As it happens to be, my grandmother was an exceptionally skilled dancer. She embraced the Rebbe's advice, and for decades, she would go to every possible wedding and dance away. Family, friends, relatives, community members, and sometimes complete strangers. Everybody knew Mrs. Lipsker is here. She is the life of the wedding and the life of the party. This was not part of her nature. This was quite contrary to her nature, but she did it, and she did it with every fiber of her being. She lived in Crown Heights in Brooklyn. There were many Bali Tshuva, young women and men who returned to Judaism, and they had small families attending the wedding, or sometimes no families. And my grandmother would come in, and she brought so much joy and vigor and stamina and inspiration to the wedding. She would dance away sometimes for hours with the bride and with the mothers and with the siblings and with the families and with the relatives. And indeed, the joy that she brought to hundreds and thousands of people over long decades, it came back to her. It gave her so much joy and strength and fortitude and resilience and inspiration. Besides the fact, exercising a few times a week for a few hours a night, dancing with all your might is also very effective for anxiety. 13 years ago, my grandmother's youngest son, Shmuel, was marrying off his child. I came to the wedding a little late, and I noticed that none of my uncles and aunts are present. My mother is also not there. What happened? I find out that night, my grandmother, who was 94 years old, had a hard time breathing. They rushed her to Methodist Hospital. The Hatzalah member called my mother, and my mother came straight from the wedding to visit her mother, my grandmother. She saw that the situation was complicated. She called her siblings and other relatives to come to the hospital, and they all came from the wedding. This scene was surreal. My grandmother was on her bed, surrounded by 30 or 40, 50 family members. All the women dressed in wedding gowns, the men dressed in wedding attire, singing joyous melodies. At one point, the nurse comes into the ICU and she says, "What is this, a wedding?" A few minutes after midnight, my holy grandmother returned her soul to its maker. She died as she lived, in an atmosphere of joy, meaning, purpose, unity, with the family that she loved so much surrounding her deathbed, all dressed in their finest wedding attire.
What a story, huh? But it's very interesting. She's suffering from anxiety, depression. And what does Rebbe tell her to do? Not to go sit on the couch and spill out her whole life story, but to what? Okay.
Embrace joy.
Embrace joy, embrace positivity. Get the good juices of health flowing again. And it helped her. It helped her. And it's an unbelievable thing, you know. She was already like an empty nester. And she just made it a business. In Crown Heights, by the way, weddings, every night there's a wedding. There's 2 wedding halls right now in Crown Heights, and it's very difficult. There's a lot of demand. There's always weddings in Crown Heights. She used to go any night that she was available. She would leave her house, walk to the wedding hall, just hang out, and she would dance because Rebbe told us to dance at weddings. Such a special thing. All right, that's case study number 2. What's case study number 2? Invest your energy in health and positivity. You're suffering from depression, from anxiety. Focus on creating goodness, simply good energy flowing in your life. Number 3, whole different experience over here. This is a video, another video, very short video. In general, we watch a lot of videos here in this class, but most videos of the Rebbe speaking one-on-one with people, are from the later years of the Rebbe's life, the late 80s and the 90s. The real time when there was, which we watch interviews of, where there was real one-on-one conversations, real meetings with the Rebbe, so those were for the first few decades, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, but none of those are on video. Those were when we were able to make an appointment, and you would go into the Rebbe's room, and you would have private time with the Rebbe. You would be able to sit down at his desk and have a conversation. And even then, after a few minutes, the secretariat would already try wrapping up the meeting to allow all, but sometimes it can be very long and involved conversations. And from those, we have no videos. We have a few recordings. Some people discreetly brought in recording devices, and we have a few, literally a handful, 2 handfuls of recorded conversations with the Rebbe, more lengthier conversations with the Rebbe in his office. What we have on video is, what happened in the later years when there was so much demand. So the Rebbe said, okay, it simply doesn't make sense anymore. There's way too much demand to see people one-on-one at the office. So what the Rebbe said is every single Sunday, as soon as the Rebbe finished davening the morning prayers, he would go to his office, take off his tefillin, and right away walk out into the entrance room, the foyer of 770 of the building. And they set up a little table for the Rebbe to lean on. The Rebbe didn't even want to sit. The Rebbe says, everybody else is standing. I should sit. It's disrespectful. So the Rebbe is literally in his upper 80s and low 90s, and he's standing for hours because it's disrespectful when everybody else is standing, that I should be the only one sitting. So the Rebbe is standing at a table, and anybody who wants, it was totally open. He didn't need any credentials to get online. He just stood online, and the line slowly moved, and you'd be able to see the Rebbe at least for a few seconds, ask the Rebbe for a blessing, ask the Rebbe for advice. Usually it lasted very brief. These were very, very brief moments with the Rebbe. The Rebbe would give you $1 for charity, because the Rebbe wanted that every meeting of 2 Jews, a mitzvah should come out of it. So if we're seeing each other, here's $1. Let a Jew in need, an organization, get $1. And the Rebbe was also very much into that. Empower people to do goodness. The Rebbe was always wanted to empower people, so always $1. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you could speak with the Rebbe for 30 seconds, 60 seconds. These were very short conversations which packed in a lot. And then there was a video there, which is why we have so many videos of these dollars lines, but they would only release videos with the person's permission, right? Somebody's coming and sharing a private moment with the Rebbe. It doesn't have to be broadcast to the whole world. So they would make sure to track down the person. I actually remember there was an individual from Princeton where I grew up who met the Rebbe, a very beautiful encounter. And we went to the organization that's the curators of all these videos. They said, well, we never got permission from this guy, so we can't give you the video. I'm like, no, we're ready to pay for it. I'm like, no, until we get permission from him. Eventually, they actually did get permission from him, and they released that video. This is a video where the individual did not want it to be public, but he did agree that they could digitally redact him. Like what they do with people in the, what's it called?
Protection.
The witness protection program, right? No, so they hide. So you'll see the video. Who is this? This is somebody who just came out of prison. A Jewish guy. He was a prisoner for many years. And he came to the Rebbe because he knew that the Rebbe was taking care of him all the years that he was in prison. 10 years before this video, the Rebbe founded what's called the Aleph Institute, which is the Chabad organization that its mission is to take care of the forgotten Jews. Who are the Jews, especially in America, who nobody serves them? They're just simply not on anybody's radar. So the Rebbe founded in 1981 the Aleph Institute, still very, very active till today, and they have 2 branches today where they've identified the lost and forgotten Jews. Jewish prisoners and Jewish soldiers in the United States Army. Who is making sure that some 20-year-old Jewish American boy that's on some submarine for 6 months and who knows what God's forsaken corner of the planet is going to get matzah for Passover? So who's thinking about that? It's a good question. Who is thinking about that? So I've made organizations like that. Somebody is thinking about that. And they have a list of every single Jewish inmate in the whole America, every single Jewish soldier in America, and they make sure that they're always in touch with them, and it's an unbelievable. So this Jewish prisoner all of a sudden realized that the Rebbe's taking care of him. Every single holiday, Aleph Institute is getting in touch with him. We want to make sure you have a chance to celebrate. What do you need from us, spiritually, physically? Just taking care of him. So upon his release, this is right after he came out of prison. He comes to the Rebbe, and this is an example sometimes where the Rebbe gives. The Rebbe sometimes knew how to be a little tough with people. Not tough in a negative way, but to tell them what they need to hear, even if it's hard to hear it. And I think this is one of the times where you see that. So, fascinating video. This is case study number 3. Let's get the lights. Here we go.
I was in prison, and this rabbi here, and also the feeling of you helped me get through it. And I want to thank you.
God will not will soon forget about all this past.
I don't forget it.
The same. You know what Passover is?
Yes.
Yeah. If the Jews have forgotten about Mitzrayim, it is time for you to forget about your prison also. God will not bless you, even if it's difficult, but try your best. God will not bless you.
Thank you.
That's it. Straight to the point. So this is somebody who came out of prison, and there's no easy life coming out of prison. They say that harder than being in prison is becoming a free man afterwards, where the whole world rejects you, and you're on every single list. So that if you want to get hired by a company, what do they tell you? Oh, we did a background check, and there's no way we're hiring you. And all of a sudden, that's what they say. Harder than being in prison is coming out of prison. And what does the Rebbe tell him? Forget about it. And he says, no, I don't forget. And the Rebbe gives him pushback. He says, no. If the Jews forgot about Egypt, you got to forget. And the Rebbe does tell him, I know it's difficult. Even if it's difficult, you got to try hard. Again, don't allow this negativity to just hijack your life in the moment. Try to forget. Move past it. Yes?
How does that correlate with at the Seder? We remember Egypt and we remember the Exodus.
Remember from a place of health. We celebrate it.
Don't we commemorate it?
We commemorate it, yeah. We're not fixating on, oh, we suffered and look at us, we're so beaten and we're
the
traumatized.
exodus from Egypt.
Exactly. We're coming from a place of strength. The Seder's a night of royalty, right? The idea is it's supposed to be a royal night, so right. And by the way, it's actually one of the qualities of the Jews. No matter how much they suffered, they right away pick back up, like after the Holocaust. We didn't sit there and brood and no, we can't get moving for 50 years. No, we suffered too much. We can't get our act together. Right away, the Jews got their act together. Okay, that is number 3. Very, very powerful video. I have no clue what the identity of this man is. I have no clue what his life story is, but this is the video. Disengage from the past in order to heal from it. Move on, just like Passover. You have to have an exodus. Final case study. Once again, totally new thing. A mother writes to the Rebbe. We know it's a mother because we can tell from the letter. This is so fascinating. Unbelievable letter. This mother has 2 daughters. The younger daughter is displaying tremendous disinterest in life. She's very detached, a lot of apathy, no warmth, no excitement, just simply doesn't want to engage. And it's freaking the mother out. She's just not healthy. And just in general, she sees her daughter is just emotionally disturbed. She's having a very rough time emotionally. And you could tell from this letter, which we only have a little part of the letter here. I wish we had maybe in the back the full letter, because it's a very powerful letter. The mother was really freaking out, which I guess like a good Jewish mother, right? Really freaking out. And she writes to the Rebbe that the daughter is in therapy already for a while. The therapist is giving a lot of counseling and everything. But she feels that something's terribly wrong with her daughter. Just her daughter is simply not healing. Okay. The Rebbe comes. The Rebbe does something which, I can't say the Rebbe did this very often, but I've seen many times the Rebbe do this. The Rebbe gets one letter, and the Rebbe diagnoses the issue with such pinpoint, like such clear vision. The Rebbe goes straight, with such confidence, totally lays out what's happening over here, like a full diagnosis of the issue. Unbelievable letter. Text 2A in your books. Marshall, up to you.
The jealous sister.
Yeah, page 95.
95. The reasons for your younger daughter's condition are not at all complicated. The causes seem to lie in the fact that your daughter is subconsciously jealous of her older sister, and such a feeling manifests itself by a desire not to be interested in those activities where the person is unable to compete successfully. Therefore, your younger daughter shows little inclination to engage in the activities in which her sister is more successful than she. However, since such is the attitude of jealousy, creating a subconscious feeling of guilt, one is prone to compensate for it by an outward show of attachment. That is why she flies to the defense of her sister if anyone should say anything disparaging against her.
Okay, so here we have the first part of the letter. The Rebbe just goes straight to the issue. And the Rebbe says right away, you see something like a certain comforting tone. The reason for your younger daughter's conditions are not at all complicated. Like, this is not a difficult case, the Rebbe says right away. Very simple. What's happening over here? Your daughter's not suffering mentally, emotionally. She's not emotionally, off. Very simple, very human problem over here. The younger daughter is jealous of her older sister. The older sister is successful, does well in school, is capable, probably good looking, all the things. And the younger sister is this little girl, and she has this inferiority complex. So what's she doing? The Rebbe says subconsciously, any area which the sister is good at, the younger sister just simply checks out. She doesn't even try competing. So if the older sister is good at school, she doesn't want to go to school. If the younger sister is good at helping in the house, she doesn't want to help in the house. So all of a sudden she's checked out of life. And Rebbe also says something very interesting over here. But because she has these feelings of guilt, that she's so jealous, she has this abnormal attachment, and she's constantly defending the older sister. But Rebbe says, really, this is just plain, simple human jealousy. It's crazy. The mother comes with this whole, very distressful situation. And the Rebbe says, no, it's very simple. It's simple jealousy. Your daughter's a regular, healthy human being. Okay, so what's the Rebbe's advice now? Let's continue. Alex, text 2B, page 96, the letter continues.
At the same time, this diagnosis suggests also the method of therapy, namely that every effort should be made to restore her confidence by offering her opportunities to engage in such activities where she can take a leading part and excel herself. Needless to say, this should be done in a gradual way, for in her present state of mind, she will be reluctant to undertake responsibilities all at once. But surely, both at school and in other cultural circles, there are opportunities for her to develop her artistic and other talents. It would be psychologically beneficial to her if the activities would be of a kind in which her sister does not participate. The choice of such activities is fairly wide, and they could be cultural, charitable, or youth work among Jewish youth and the like.
It's worth taking what's happening over here. So this daughter is suffering from what looks like depression and apathy and isolation and disconnection from society. So, hey, let's put her in therapy and this treatment and this psychologist. What does everyone say? It's simple. Invest in health. Let's find something she's good at. Somewhere where she could shine and not be outshined by her sister. What does it be? Anything. A school project, volunteering. Let's find something she's good at. Let's make her feel good about herself. Let's make her feel confident in herself. And what does Rebbe say? Everything will heal from there. Everything will get better from there. Allow the self-esteem to grow, and the problems will slowly start healing themselves. This is case study number 4, from jealousy to confidence. Find areas in which she could excel on her own. 4 different stories, 4 different problems, each one different, each one a different problem. But what's the underlying theme of the Rebbe? Number 1, it's 2 sides of one coin. Number 1, stop fixating on the problem. Don't obsess about what seems to be the problem. Don't fixate on the negativity, the past, the issue. And instead focus on health. Invest in health. Which is very interesting. What is this about? What is the basis for the Rebbe's approach? And dear friends, here I want to share with you, to really get down to, what did the Rebbe know that he's trying to share here? What's the Rebbe's secret that he's always coming with this counterintuitive approach? There's a problem, you don't heal the problem by making the problem a problem. Simply build up health. Where does that come from? Let's read a letter. This is a letter that the Rebbe wrote to a mental health professional, a female mental health professional in Israel in 1986. This was a mental health professional in Israel who was dealing with a case, and she reached out to the Rebbe for guidance, for some counsel on this case. Which, by the way, is itself interesting, no? You're a mental health professional in Israel, and you're dealing with a case and you're a doubt, so you write to the Lubavitch Rebbe in Brooklyn. It's interesting. You write to a rabbi for help how to administer psychological treatment. Okay, but here the Rebbe explains a little bit more what he's doing. What's the secret? What's the science behind this approach? Unbelievable text. Text 3, Al, we're by you, page 98.
Okay. It is difficult to offer counsel from afar, as the conditions of the country, the family, and so on have direct bearing on the situation. Those who observe a situation from close proximity are better and more expertly equipped to arrive at an effective treatment. However, since you have already written to me and everything is by divine providence, I wish to emphasize something that I have witnessed in the majority of similar cases. A decisive and extremely effective method, which to my amazement is not used, at least not as much as it should be used. Besach Hadat, guiding the patient to entirely remove their mind from activity, dwelling on the problematic issues at hand. The more the patient succeeds in ceasing to think about and dwell upon these issues that are the cause of their program, the greater will be the ability of their natural internal healing powers, along with their other positive and curative aspects, to function with increased intensity and bring about healing. The above may be accomplished through arranging that these individuals are preoccupied with activities that lead to personal fulfillment, such as doing someone else a favor, something that in any case is acceptable to all, and therefore should not be difficult to convince them to do. This is particularly so nowadays, when instability is so prevalent, individual needs are so numerous. It is relatively simple to find a way for these individuals to help others with activities that are consonant with the needs and nature of the locale and the individual who requires healing.
All right, let's unpack this here. What does the Rebbe say? That's a lot. There's a lot going on over here. The Rebbe says the Rebbe had a very deep faith in the idea that people are inherently healthy. People are healthy. The natural state of every single human being is health. Nobody is an emotional wreck. Nobody is a problem. You're not problematic. Okay? So what happens? The Rebbe saw every single negative emotion as an imposition to your nature, and that the body itself, there's natural internal healing powers, and therefore, when there's a problem, and I think it touches a lot upon what we spoke about last week, holistic health, build up health all around the board. Don't just try to deal with little problems. Don't focus on the issue. Build up the general health of the person, and the person themselves will heal by building up health. Because many times these problems come from simply a lack of health. Build up the health, they themselves will heal. So what happens? What the Rebbe said was, when you give negativity so much of a center stage, and you shine the spotlight on the negativity, what it does is, it basically becomes the psychological ruler of this person. Who are you? You become the problem. And it doesn't allow the health within you to be dominant. And the health, the internal health that we all possess, gets pushed to the back burner. It never gets a chance to express itself. Your health. So as much as there's a problem here, depression, anxiety, negative, whatever it is, you have health. Don't neglect the health. What does health look like? Feel good about yourself. Are you busy? Are you doing things that make you feel good at the end of the day? Are you providing value to this world? Do you feel good about yourself? Usually all these problems come because you have too much free time. You're not fulfilling enough. You have no self-fulfillment. You don't have a good self-esteem. So what happens? All these problems kick in. But these problems are not inherent to you, to your identity. So the Rebbe very much believed, build up the health. You are really healthy. Build up that health. Make sure that health is there, and you'll see. What looked like you have deep scars, they're not really such deep scars. Build up the health and you'll turn out okay. Very powerful. Okay, let's read now another letter on the exact same thing. This is now a letter to not the psychologist, but to an individual, a young woman. We know she's a young woman. Maybe she's a teenager. Maybe she's a young adult. And she was having very dark and dramatic thoughts about herself. She had a lot of anxious thoughts about herself. Toxic introspection. And she had a long correspondence with the Rebbe, with multiple back and forths. This is one letter the Rebbe writes there. Unbelievable letter. Linda, text 4, page 100.
I fail to see any grounds for your dejection and for your statement that everything has suddenly fallen apart. Since your anxiety is unfounded, it will not last long. Started today and gone tomorrow. That is provided you do not actively invite morose thoughts that run contrary to the human nature and dictates of our Torah of life, which requires from each of us to serve God specifically with joy. In truth, this service is possible and necessary at each moment of mortal life. You surely recognize, backed also with personal experience, the verily observable reality that if it is sometimes difficult to battle a certain mood, the best advice is to distract your attention from the mood, not by fighting it, but by focusing your thoughts elsewhere. General motto for this approach is God made humans straightforward, but they sought many complications. Since the complications come from they, therefore they have the ability to nullify them easily. I will conclude with my advice since you sought my counsel. Completely divert your mind from all introspective, self-examining thoughts. Proceed with confidence along your life's path, since God's providence accompanies each of us at each step of our lives, not only regarding matters that we consider highly important, but in every detail of our lives.
This is a powerful letter. The anxiety is unfounded. Okay, we're all human, so we're prone to have bad days, bad weeks, bad months. Okay, it happens. But then what happens? Oh, I suffer from anxiety. So now I suffer my whole life. The Rebbe says, it will go away on its own. But what do we do instead? We take it, we stamp it all over ourselves, make it into central issue. We don't let it go away. We don't let the problem go away. But the Rebbe says the problem is that they're failing to us. God made humans straightforward. You are healthy. You are healthy internally. The problem is a passing thing. You're human, okay, so we have that. So what do we need to do? If you need it, so number one, if you need to go to a doctor, if you need to take pills, or if there's a certain treatment, no problem, do it. But I actually saw a letter once, somebody who was suffering from chemical imbalance, and he was suffering from mental health because of, and a psychiatrist gave him pills to take. And it was a religious Jew, he decided he doesn't want to take the medicine. And it happens. I saw a letter from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was very tough with him. The Rebbe said, it says in the Torah, like we learned last week, that God gave the doctors the power to heal, and the Torah needs you to listen to doctors. The Rebbe says the same way you don't miss a day to put on tefillin, this doctor told you to take every single day a pill. Why are you skipping it? Why are you being flippant about it? You have to take your pills. Listen to the doctors. So if you need to do that, you do it. Meaning, whatever the treatment is, treat it. But the investment of energy in dealing with the problem has to be in investing in health. Because you are healthy. Proceed with confidence. I've had a lot of faith in people. I've had a lot of trust in people. Don't allow the problem to hijack the person. When we deal with the issue, it always has to be from a place that this person is a good, healthy individual. Okay? If we got to deal with it, we got to deal with it. Very often the way to deal with it is by simply not making an issue of it. The more you make an issue, especially with children, the more you make an issue of it, what happens? They start identifying with it. It's a known rule, like in the Chabad schools, this is very well known. It comes from the Rebbe. If there's a teenager who's struggling, they're getting in trouble, especially if they're rebelling against religion. So what could you do? One thing is get the kid in trouble. You're a troublemaker. You're missing this. We're going to kick you out of school. You make a lot of issue around what's happening. Or you know what you do is lift up the kid. What's happening is this kid is either bored, he's in pain, whatever it is. Obviously, he's not in a good space. So what should you do? Find him good things to get involved in. Make him feel good about himself. Figure out ways to fill up his time, get good juices of life flowing through him. And you'll see it's always tried and tested advice. They become better. They heal on their own. You look back 5 years later, what an amazing person this is. 5 years later, they're struggling. But look, they've healed so well. Why? Because you didn't make the issue into an issue. You focused on building health. Put effort into building up the internal health of this person. Let me show you now a video. This video is of a very celebrated psychotherapist in Israel. He passed away by now. He was like a European born, like a very, you'll see him. He was a professor. He had a whole center in Israel for behavioral therapy and cognitive therapy. And he was a certain professional that the Rebbe was, number one, very in contact with him. And the Rebbe very often sent cases in Israel, or even told people to fly to Israel. His name was Dr. Feuerstein. Very interesting. He shares here a story that in his 50 years of doing clinical work, his most difficult case, and how the Rebbe guided him through this case. Very interesting video. So here we go. Faith in life's healing power, divine inner health lies at the core of every human being. Engaging the mind in a healthy place brings that health to the forefront. That is the Rebbe's philosophy. Here we go.
Professor Reuven Feuerstein is a world-renowned Israeli clinical and developmental cognitive psychologist, founder and director of the International Center for the Enhancement of Learning Potential. His applied systems are being implemented in over 80 countries across the globe.
The rabbi referred to me children for their problems of development, some epileptic children, some Down syndrome children, and wherever I came, and wherever I visited or I worked in my field, people were addressing themselves to me. The rabbi wants you to see our child. And some of them received really letters from the rabbi, or the word from the rabbi, that I should see their child. And one of the things, and I must say, they believe that such a thing is possible, that people with genetic disorders, chromosomal disorders, can be turned into high functioning, normal functioning, and very close to study, to Yiddishkeit, etc. I heard it very much from the rabbi. It was a daring thing, because at this time, people didn't believe it's possible. One particular case, which I cannot disclose, and therefore it came from a country in Europe. This boy was considered to be mentally defective. One didn't believe that he will ever be able to function and to be independent and to be. And this man, the father, in some way he was not a very religious person, came to the rabbi. The rabbi told him to bring his son to me. The son came here and was placed in a family. He learned to read. He was sitting here near this door on a chair with a Tehillim. The rabbi said to finish Tehillim each week. And he learned this. It was the third year that he was with us. And he learned this. And Baruch Hashem, this went very well. And we were already feeling that we have done what the rabbi told us to do and empowered us to do. And we felt Hatzlacha. Then things happened, and this young man went into the greatest danger. Not only drugs, but things which I cannot tell you. He ran away, and he came into a place from where very few people came out. And I then addressed myself to the rabbi. The rabbi said, don't leave him off your hand. Continue. And he gave me even a suggestion to send somebody to take him out from this place. I have never believed it will be possible. But the rabbi said, I've sent somebody. We took out this young man from this terrible, terrible, promiscuous drug people. With all, there's no Avirah Sheba'olam which he was not involved with. He came back. I want you to know, he is now the father of 4 children. Many of them, 2 of them, learning in yeshiva. And they are the only children of this family, only grandchildren of this family, which the grandparents can be proud of. I as a psychologist, and one says a good psychologist, could never believe that with my own knowledge and my own psychology, I would have ever been able to do it. Usually, in such cases, we raise our hands, nothing to do. Not with the rabbi. I must tell you something. Psychology, as it is taught, is very limited. Our understanding of the other is very much affected and related to our understanding of ourselves. In the way the rabbi understood the condition of the individual, in the way he claimed and suggested and felt empowered to say, yes, do it, there was a very different way of seeing the human being. Not as a just reflection of yourself, but as something which comes be'ara dilela.
Yep. Interesting, so right? How the Rebbe had a lot of faith. The Rebbe believed in people. The Rebbe believed that there's a lot of health in people. And even if it takes a little bit of pushing hard to get those juices flowing, it's there. Okay. Dear friends, we have a few minutes left of today's class. I want to share off with 2 points. All right, we'll do 1 point. We'll see if we have time for the second point. Number 1, which is very, very interesting, that this was really the dominant view of the Rebbe, that even when there's a need for specific treatments and intervention from mental health professionals, this has to be the tone. The Rebbe always wrote to mental health professionals to try to do this. Move, focus from problems, invest in goodness. And the Rebbe very often said, sometimes the Rebbe told the patient themselves to do this piece of advice, which means try to actively divert attention. Sometimes the Rebbe said, don't tell the patient, but the parents should do it. Just create an environment for your kid where all of a sudden your kid is just feeling so good about themselves. Create all those health juices flowing. And it says, you'll see. Just give it some time. they're depressed, don't talk to them about depression. Talk to them about health. Talk to them about how they're going to, get them involved in volunteering, just whatever it is, anything. Anything that makes them healthy. By the way, I think today, one of the great blessings of living in such an affluent culture, we're so comfortable. We don't have wars to run away from. One of the luxuries is we have a lot of time. And because we have so much time, we get to focus a lot on all of our problems and all of our anxieties and all of our doubts. And the problem is, I think we all suffer from a little bit of self-inflicted insanity, no? In Yiddish, they say we're making ourselves meshuggah. And then also, no, I suffer from depression. I suffer from anxiety. Oh, I have this problem. I have that problem. We're creating problems for ourselves. The Rebbe was very real about this. 99% of the time, there's not a real problem here. This problem is you're just not in a good, healthy place. Get yourself in a healthy place. So what are the things that bring fulfillment to your life? What are the things you could do where you feel like, wow, I'm giving something to society. The world's a better place because I did something today. What are those things? And do it. What gives you fulfillment? What gives you meaning in life? It's such an important thing. Go study Torah on a regular basis. Go do things. Interact with people. Don't just live get life flowing. This is for sure at the very essence of how the Rebbe saw health and mental health and emotional health. So one thing which touches upon this is the fact that the Rebbe really had a very deep appreciation for the theory, for the psychological theories of Professor Viktor Frankl. So Viktor Frankl was, of course, a Jewish psychotherapist, a Holocaust survivor. He spent a few years in different camps. His family, his wife was killed. Most of his relatives were killed. And with a lot of reflection after the war, he developed what's called logotherapy, his own theory of psychotherapy. He wrote in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, which is very difficult to read. You ever read it before, Man's Search for Meaning? Half of it is the story of the Holocaust, very, very painful. It's a very short book, but it's like impossible to finish. It's a very raw book. And then the second half of it is his theory of logotherapy. And the Rebbe really, really liked a lot of the theories that Dr. Viktor Frankl put forward. And we don't have time. I could show you a video. I'll send it to you in the email after the class. The Rebbe was actually involved in Viktor Frankl's life a little bit. We're not going to get involved in it, but we don't have time now to get into the whole story. But I want to read two pieces from Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, because you'll see that it very much falls in line with the Rebbe's philosophy here. Text 5, page 102. Daniel, right? Linda, you read, right? You just read. So Daniel, text 5, page 102.
Logotherapy. I'm reminded of the American doctor who once turned up in my office in Vienna and asked me, "What school do you stand for?" I answered, "It is my own theory. I call it logotherapy." "Can you tell me in one sentence what is meant by logotherapy?" he asked. "At least, what is the difference between psychoanalysis and logotherapy?" "Yes," I said, "but in the first place, can you tell me in one sentence what you think the essence of psychoanalysis is?" This was his answer. "During psychoanalysis, the patient must lie down on a couch and tell you things which sometimes are very disagreeable to tell." Whereupon I immediately retorted with the following improvisation. "Now, in logotherapy, the patient may remain sitting erect, but he must hear things which sometimes are very disagreeable to hear." Of course, this was meant fictitiously and not as a capsule version of logotherapy. However, there is something in it, inasmuch as logotherapy, in comparison with psychoanalysis, is a method less retrospective and less introspective. Logotherapy focuses rather on the future, that is to say, on the meanings to be fulfilled by the patient in his future. Logotherapy, indeed, is meaning-centered psychotherapy. At the same time, logotherapy defocuses all the vicious circle formations and feedback mechanisms which play such a great role in the development of neurosis. Thus, the typical self-centeredness of the neurotic is broken up instead of being continually fostered and reinforced.
Very interesting, right? There's a certain vicious cycle formation. There's a feedback mechanisms which feeds into neuroses. The more you feed these problems, the more they become present in your life. And he says, is it logotherapy? Am I pronouncing it properly? Or is it like you said? It's logotherapy? Okay. You were throwing me off there, Daniel, but it's okay. Move away from that self-centeredness of my problems and more problems. Create a meaningful life. Create a life for the person. That itself is the therapy. And now you can see why the Rebbe was starting to really like this guy, huh? Oh, this guy's onto something. Let's read another text. Very powerful again. Richard, text 6, page 104.
Embracing the tension. I consider it a dangerous misconception of mental hygiene to assume that what man needs in the first place is equilibrium, or, as it is called in biology, homeostasis, i.e. a tensionless state. What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal, a freely chosen task. What he needs is not the discharge of tension at any cost, but the call of a potential meaning waiting to be fulfilled by him. And one should not think that this holds true only for normal conditions. In neurotic individuals, it is even more valid. If architects want to strengthen the script arch, they increase the load which is laid upon it, for thereby the parts are joined more firmly together. So if therapists wish to foster their patients' mental health, they should not be afraid to create a sound amount of tension through a reorientation towards the meaning of one's life.
Another very powerful idea. What happens sometimes when children are struggling? You know what? Don't go to school today. You know, you're not in a good mood? Okay, you don't have to help out in the house today. What are we doing? We're just creating more empty space for negativity to creep in. He says, do the opposite, add tension. Guide them towards fulfillment, towards finding meaning, towards just feeling good about themselves. The previous Rebbe said the story. You ready for this? The previous Rebbe's father founded the first official Chabad yeshiva. This is about 100 years ago in Russia. And a boy signed up for the yeshiva, and he came, and he just wasn't in a good space. He wasn't in a good spiritual space. He wasn't in a good emotional space. You know, he was a teenager. And but everybody saw that he's a case. So this was the fifth Chabad Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab called him over and said, I want to give you a job, a responsibility. Passover was coming soon. You're in charge of the whole operation to make matzahs for town. You know, today you go to a store, there's massive operations. You know, today it sounds... Then it was a big deal. You know, you're in Russia. You know, you got to figure it out. His job was to make matzah, and he actually faced a lot of stress because of it. It was very difficult for this boy. But when it was done and the job was done, the previous Rebbe said, my father said, you look at his face, he's a different person. Look at him. Here's a healthy person. He feels good about himself. He feels accomplished. He came here just feeling empty, and you know, look at this. A little bit of work. And just a person emerged, a healthy person emerged. It's a very powerful story. And finally, Lily, this is where the Rebbe, this is in the 60s. The Rebbe writes about Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl, he was barely known then. Today he's already, he's a famous name. Nobody knew about, he was very, in general, so we're not going to show the video, but Viktor Frankl suffered a lot because he was ridiculed a lot. It took years and years, decades, until people started catching on to what he had to say. But because he was such a radical, he made his own theories, and he went against Freud. Everybody was, Freud was the master of psychotherapy. But there in the 60s is speaking about him. So Lily, text 7, page 105.
I took particular interest in the writings of Dr. Frankl from Vienna in this matter. To my surprise, however, his approach has apparently not been appropriately disseminated, nor has it become popularly accepted. Although one can find numerous reasons as to why his ideas are not widely accepted, the question as to why it is not appreciated still remains.
I was wondering, what's going on here? Why is it not getting out there more? So this is just very, very fascinating how the Rebbe even found within the world of psychology a specific theory, and the Rebbe wanted, even if it's not going to be fully adopted, but some elements of how Dr. Frankl shifted the focus should be accepted more in the professional world of psychology. Dear friends, I want to conclude by reading a letter with you. We have 5 minutes left. I think we can do it in 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes. You will see the unbelievable sensitivity and care and just simple the attention that was giving to this young woman. This is a letter from 1956. Again, you can tell that she's a young. The Rebbe is speaking to her as a young lady, so maybe upper teens, low 20s, young woman, and she was suffering from dejection, from pessimism, and in general, she felt very, very incompetent. This was a girl, once again, a teenager, right? She's going through life. She's going through as she's becoming an adult, she's feeling very down about herself. She feels non-productive. She doesn't feel that she has a life to herself. Let's take this letter. It's split up into 3 parts. We'll take it piece by piece. And I think we'll really see this whole class come to life. And this letter will wrap it up for us. So Max, let's read this letter together. Text 8A, page 106.
A faulty assessment. Understandably, I do not agree at all with the foundations upon which you construct your perspective and conclusions. By this I mean that I believe they are not grounded in reality. Your current state of mind is only temporary, and the more effort you put in, the quicker it will change. For it is absolutely clear that you have the power and also the talent to be of benefit not only to yourself, but to others as well. It is only that, like all things in this world, it is necessary to reveal and develop this potential into reality, which almost always takes effort. However, this is a degree of effort that is eminently attainable. When one considers that their relatively brief efforts will benefit themselves and others for many years to come, and it will improve their and the community's welfare, spiritually, materially, or above, and that these improvements will likely have a ripple effect and reach even further, then one will easily appreciate that their efforts and exertions to achieve this end are well worthwhile.
It's number 1. She feels that she has nothing to offer to this world. She doesn't feel she doesn't feel competent. I have no talents. I'm just a nobody. The Rebbe says not true. Now you're feeling down. That's temporary. It's not the real you. You are powerful. You are talented. You got to put in the work. So I was right away telling her, you have a lot of talent. Start trying to develop your talents. What do you enjoy doing? And it's amazing. The Rebbe didn't tell people to do a dance at weddings. I think there's only one person ever told dance at weddings, which was Mrs. Lipsker. But the Rebbe knew that she was a good dancer. How did the Rebbe know that? I don't know. He said, you deep down love dancing. Go dance. She enjoyed doing it, but what? She was down. She didn't want to dance. But you like doing it. When you were a teenager, she was a naturally good dancer. Find what you're good at, and then see how you can make the world better. How could you find meaning and purpose? Just a little bit of goodness. So powerful, huh? This is part 1 of the letter. Okay, this is... Right? Uplifting correspondence. That's what we're concluding with. This is a faulty assessment. One's negative self-view is a false passing state. Okay. Let us now continue. Text 8B, page 108.
Slow and steady. Without a doubt, in the vast majority of instances, it is impossible to radically change one's frame of mind instantaneously. However, this is not what is required. It will suffice that upon receiving my letter, you will resolve to move in the right direction to begin leading a productive life. Start by taking a first step in this direction, and then step by step, and then cumulative progression. You will soon find yourself on the road to a life that brings you self-contentment and satisfaction. If you wish to heed my advice, continue your studies next year, but in addition to studying, you should also involve yourself with providing education. It would be best to do so several times a week. My intent is that you organize groups of children and be their counselor, or even teach them subjects that can be understood on their level, holding Shabbat and festival get-togethers for them, and similar initiatives.
All right, so number 1, you have a talent, you have gifts, right? You have unique capabilities, and you have an important contribution to give to society. And slow progress, Rebbe says. We have to start working, but don't expect that tomorrow morning you're going to feel better. It's a slow process, but start putting in the effort, slow and steady. The road to leading a productive life is a gradual process, so take it nice and slow, the Rebbe says. And what does the Rebbe say over here? The Rebbe gives practical advice and enables the letter writer to continue growing. Let's continue reading. Text 8C, page 110, Mark. We're by you.
Calling all talent. Consider well. There is so much to accomplish in our world, and each human carries so much potential. Due to the vast amount of work that needs to be done, we cannot afford to give up on even one capability or talent. It is therefore the mission of every single person to harness all the potentials and talents they possess to improve their part of the world. The beginning, like with everything, starts with learning the profession, acquiring the necessary knowledge in general, and especially the knowledge necessary for using the individual's unique talents. I hope that, after you contemplate the above a couple of times, you will immediately begin being active, and you will not be fazed by the effort that is required. You will then be able to soon witness the fruits of your labor.
And finally, I love this message. What does Rebbe say? The world is too desperately in need to not have you. We need your talent. We can't even give up on one building block of talent, of energy, of goodness in our world. And there's a gift that only you can give. Find it, put in the effort, develop it, and give that gift to the world. And dear friends, that is mental health. That is the Rebbe's advice. So dear friends, this whole class is the Rebbe saying that the key to mental health, to emotional peace, is simple. Direct your energy, direct your attention to finding meaning and purpose. Find somewhere where you feel good about yourself, where you could give to the world, and develop your natural internal health within you, and you'll see all the problems will go away on their own. If you need a little bit of intervention, okay, so get medical intervention like the Torah says. But this is the heart of it. And dear friends, with that, 9:01. Pretty on time, huh? Not bad. Dear friends, I want to thank you all so much for joining. This was wonderful. Next week, lesson 5, above adversity. See how the inner meaning of life's challenges can be the key to managing them. We're going to learn about difficulties and adversity that we all face in life. That's coming up in episode number 5 of Advice for Life. We have a wonderful week, a healthy week, a happy week, with a lot of emotional goodness and strength. And we'll see you all next week, God willing.